Hi there, painters. It's Suzanne in Ohio. Had decided to do a little painting today, and I thought, well, might as well record it in case anyone wants to follow along. Now, my idea is we had painted in a former video a holly leaf and some berries, and I went looking for that because I came up with an idea of how to use that. Well, do you think I can find it here in my stuff? Nope, I cannot. So I thought, well, I'm going to paint some more. And this is just strictly painting. And if that's kind of boring to you, just move on to the next video. Although I hate to lose you. But I'm going to paint these holly leaves. I've got several of them drawn here on this fabric and some berries. And where I'm going to use them is I'm going to free motion applique them onto a journal front with whatever appropriate something else I can find. Perhaps maybe a wren or a chickadee or something, and make it like a little winter cluster. So I'm just simply going to paint today. If you want to know more about what I'm doing, you can look back at a couple of them videos that I have done, because I probably won't do a lot of talking here, other than if you want to know, in my mind, my goal here is to use a more watercolory technique, and I've been practicing it. I'm not an expert painter, as I've said many times before, but this technique of painting on fabric is fairly forgiving, and you can get a lot of good things out of it and use them in your crafts. So I'm just wetting the fabric right here, and I went ahead and squeezed out some colors, 4 shades of green and a blue and a red. And I'm just going to see how it goes, and then I'm going to try to keep a consistency in all the leaves so that they all look cohesive together. And we'll see if I can do it. I don't know. But I'm going to take a little artist privilege too and add some other colors to this, just for the painterly effect. Now, I'll tell you right now, I'm not crazy about that shade of green. It's too shamrocky. So I'm going to mix something else with it. A little bit of that dark forest green. Water this down and go over this to tone that back a little bit. Now, I'm not too worried if I have a little bleeding outside the lines, because I'm going to free motion sew these onto a surface as an applique. I've done many other things with that technique and just love the outcome of it. And as I said, I'm going to add other colors today just for the painterly effect of it. Get some more interest in the leaf. I'm going to grab another brush because I did not wet my entire leaf. I'm going to go up into this point and put some water on that fabric first. And you can see I'm not even painting within the red lines, because I changed my mind as I drew that leaf. And I changed the shape of it as I went, and I could do that again. Real simple painting. Nothing to it. Now, when I free motion sew these onto a surface, I will put the vein in at that time, so I'm not too worried about how that looks right at the moment. And without really washing my brush, Just get some extra water. Better look at the screen and make sure I'm on camera. I am. And that drop went outside the lines, but that will not matter because when I sew these down, I will sew right on the line that I want, and the rest of it's going to be cut away anyway. If you've never seen that done, I've got some other videos that show some things that I did free motion applique. And boy, is it fun. It does always make me a little nervous as I'm sitting at the machine, and oh my gosh. If you don't know anything about free motion sewing, it is a technique. If you're a sewer, you should learn it because there's so many wonderful ways to apply it to sewing. Of course, most people free motion sew when they do a free motion quilting. But I love to sew my appliques on, and I make a lot of appliques and sold them on my Etsy site for a long time. Oh, I made leaves and mushrooms and birds and crow. A crow is a bird, but he was so big I thought of him as an individual thing. So again, without washing my brush, just go in and get some water. I also made pumpkins and pumpkin leaves as appliques. And just a curious, little thing to tell you of interest. One of the pumpkin appliques I did, of course, I turned them into fabric arts. But I did a compilation of some pumpkins as if they were sitting in the field in a nighttime setting, and because some of my work was featured in a Stampington and Company book, right after that book came out, I sold that piece of artwork right away because the pumpkins were beautiful. Now, once your fabric is wet, look how beautifully that water and that fabric helps your paint move around. It's just so much fun. Get something a little darker up here, but I want it darker and bluer, so I'm going to add a little bit of blue to my brush right there. Sorry, I just can't look at the screen and paint both. I was scooting out of place too fast there. Now, don't try to get every single element exactly the same in a painting like this, otherwise it gets boring. So just keep your hand at it. Move along in a consistent amount of time. That way, you don't get over controlled and work too much on one leaf and not enough on the other, or one part of your painting, I should say. Now I put that first line of paint down without any water, so now I'm going back and put some water on it. Well, I hope you'll come back and see what I do with these as an applique. I've got an idea in my mind, and again, I don't have to stay within the lines because I will sew on the line. And the rest of that will be cut away. Just wonderful. This needs some water. Got a little hard line there. I don't want that. And don't do what I've been doing and cover up all the light spaces, because those will be your highlights. And let's get a little different shade of green in here. Greens are funny. I was watching a scientific program, and the color receptors in our eyes, which are the cones, we can see more shades of green. I don't know what they were comparing to, more than the other animals, more than other mammals, I don't know. But we can see lots of shades of green, and makes it wonderful if you're a nature painter. So, wet brush, still has some paint on it. Now, if you watch the other video with painting the holly leaf, you'll be able to compare immediately that this has far less paint, not as dark, so it gives you a totally different look. Like I said, I'm really kind of making myself practice this almost watercolory look. I'm going to add some blue to a couple more leaves so that when I mix them in on the final piece of fabric art that they've got, I've got a few of them here and there with a blue tinge to them. And you know, I'm painting with acrylic right now. As I've told you, all my stuff's in storage. But I have done some other videos using ink tints, and that's a wonderful media also. Medium, I should say, I guess. I'm always saying that wrong. Okay, that one has a tinge of blue, so I want to make sure I get another one with a tinge of blue. But first, just a wet brush, fabric wet. Now I have what I think will be a cute idea about truly making this a winter-looking collage. Before I don't know when, at some stage of the pulling it together, I'll splatter some white paint on it as if it's snow. Now back to the blue. Get some more blue over here. See, that water is blending the paint for me. Now that's just a little too much chartreuse, so I'll tone that back just a little bit. Okay, and don't overthink it. Don't overdo it. So, now, if you're going to do some little sketches on a piece of fabric and you're going to do the applique thing, don't get them too close together. That one right there is almost too close together, because I'm going to cut these out rough cut, lay them where I want them, free motion sew them, and then I'm going to cut the excess away so that my sew line is right up on the edge. That's the way I like to see it. And let's glance around and say, okay, what color do the rest of them have that I don't have in this one? A little bit of that lighter green. Because you do want them to end up looking like they came from the same holly bush. So you can't have a whole bunch of them with blue greens and one of them with a brown green. I mean, you just got to make them match. Now, after I make appliques out of these, some of them are going to overlap each other. So I don't know which part of these will end up showing and which won't. That's the fun of working it out. Tiny bit of chartreuse up here on this edge. Just a smidge. Okay. So I've got a little bit of blue here, prominent blue there. I think I need at least one more with some blue. And then I'm going to go back and ask myself if they are truly green enough. Okay, I want 2 more leaves and then we'll do a couple berries. Nothing but dirty water here. Okay, I want my paint thin. You can see as I've gone along here, I've gotten less and less controlled, a little bit more sloppy. And that's good. After you do a couple things, then you have really landed on whatever your brain wants to do that day. The artist's hand, as they say. Don't ever start a project and think you will go back to it and create the same effect the next day. It don't happen because, I don't know, whatever the artist's hand is, whatever you're producing that day, try to get it done, or at least the overall. And just a touch of green, I'm going to leave that highlight there. Now, in case you don't know, all these red lines are a disappearing ink. And when I'm all done, if everything hasn't disappeared, I will just touch them with a hot iron and that will all go away. So it's really just a guideline. Tiny bit more blue in this one. Let's see. Tiny bit bright green. Okay, now let's put some red on the fabric. I don't even have to really wash my brush, but I'll swish it if I want. Just a little. I'm going to put a light coat down first. Pretty creamy, not watery, creamy. And then I'll go back and try to get some highlights in these circles in these berries to show the dimension. Now, the ones that are in a cluster, I will sew them together. I will sew them on the piece. See, I had a little bit of something on my brush. I don't care. So I'm going to leave that just like that. I'm just trying to round out these berries. That'll do nothing but just add highlights. Wonderful. And I'll sew them on as a cluster, but I will sew around each one of them. And it will define them. I hope they're to scale with the leaves. I did not double check my photo sources, but I think they're close enough. It's fabric art, right? And it probably end up on a junk journal, so. I thought, this will tell you how old I am. I was thinking, okay, some of these things would make cute little fabric baskets to hold Christmas cards. Now I thought, are you kidding? Oh, sorry. I had a text come in. I don't even know. Do people still send Christmas cards? Or do they do something online? Oh, but just a little fabric basket sitting around for the holidays. Now, see how easy that is to just swirl your brush? This is just a round brush. Use whatever you have. Okay, now I'm taking too much time sitting there doing all those berries. So what I want to do is before these leaves dry totally, I want to go back to them and just ask myself, do they have enough green in them? And what level of darkness do I really want? So I'm going to go easy here and see what happens if I just add a little bit more green. And you can see the paint is still wet, so it's letting that green move around. Okay, I like that. I think it needs it. So we don't want to get them all the same color though. So I'm going to be careful what I do here. And keep in mind, when I stitch around them with the free motion, I'll probably use a very dark green thread. So that's going to add a lot of definement to the edges. So I don't have to do it all with paint. Kind of like coloring in a coloring book. Just a little bit more of this. A couple of these. And I'm saying to myself, don't get them all the same, exactly the same. Okay, if you're unsure squint your eyes. I hope you know that trick. If you squint your eyes at your Christmas tree, you'll be able to see if your lights are evenly distributed. Same thing here. So squint your eyes and say, do they all look cohesive enough? Is there enough green on them? Blah, blah, blah. And that's all I want to do, because I want to keep a lighter, more watercolory look to these leaves. Oh, back to what I was saying about ink tints. Oh, I love that product. So even though I painted these with acrylic, if I got the whole thing done and felt like, oh my gosh, just one berry needed to be brighter or darker on one side, I would take my ink tints and put that right over top of this acrylic. But that is in storage, so there'll be none of that. All right, let's just do a couple more things here. Put some shadows in these berries, and it doesn't have to be a lot. If you remember what I said before, green is opposite red on the color wheel, so that's the complementary color. If you mix the two together, you get a very dark shade of either green or red, depending on how you mix your color. So here I've got a very dark red going on, almost a gray red, and that'll be perfect for some shadows. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this on in strategic places. And bet you can't even see that. See, I'm so intent on what I'm doing, I'm forgetting. You're still up there. Come on down here. And I'm just barely touching this wet brush to the fabric, and the dampness is pulling it right in. And again, it's just a very dark gray green, or gray red. I don't like the shape of that berry, so I'll change it. I just scribbled it down. It's a little too cattywampus for me. Okay, I'm going to stop there and encourage you to get something and paint along with me. You'll be glad you did when we start making these into appliques. Well, I thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this or want to see the follow-up of it, give me a thumbs up or a comment, and I'll be back real soon. Bye-bye.